Okay, we are back for another episode of Beyond Barriers. Beyond Barriers is a podcast hosted by Wally, a digital accessibility platform. I am the co founder of Wally and also your host of Beyond Barriers. Beyond Barriers is a weekly conversation that joins leaders and community evangelists in the accessibility space to talk about the challenges of navigating an effective accessibility strategy. During the conversation, guests get to share their journey of successes and setbacks with a primary focus on how they've overcome issues that could have otherwise ended their journey in accessibility. And today I'm very happy to be joined by Seema Shariat, an accessibility leader. Thank you so much for joining us today, Seema.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, well, we have a packed agenda from a conversation perspective. So I always love opening up, just hearing a little bit about yourself, how you got into the accessibility space. So please help us learn a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm a front-end engineer and I have been for about 10 years now. I'm also a 3-time cancer survivor. So obviously there's a place in my heart for people with disabilities being part of that community. I used to work in a startup where I was responding to lots of RFPs. And one day I came across one that asked for a VPAT. And that was sort of my entryway into this whole new world of web accessibility. And from there, I learned about WCAG success criterions, line by line, what X, Y, and Z means. And it wasn't until about 2012 where I started actually putting these things into implementation when I was working at a small fintech company. And from there, I met a woman who's a leader in accessibility. And that's who I learned everything from, like in action. So it's one thing to read and learn about all the jargon and litigation and everything like that. Another thing to have somebody there to guide you and be your mentor. And that's sort of how I became really involved in accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, dating back to 2012, you're a very tenured leader in the accessibility space, and uh, having gone through a personal journey yourself, I'm sure, having to balance both the education and the usability from a personal front, accessibility gained a little bit of a special place in your heart.
Definitely. Yeah, I've had chemotherapy induced neuropathy in my hands before, so I know really well how frustrating it can be to try to use any sort of assistive technology if a website is not accessible. So, um, some people, obviously that was temporary for me, but some people have to deal with this every day because we do live in an ableist world, right? So part of my job and part of my passion is trying to do the best that I can to make things better for people with disabilities.
So you mentioned you're a front end developer in your professional career. Tell me a little bit about how you come across accessibility on a day-to-day basis and kind of how you grew to become a leader in the accessibility space for your team.
Well, one thing I realized is that there's a lot of lack of understanding or education. It's not something you learn in school. Becoming a developer, when you learn computer science, they don't teach you about accessibility. Um, Although a lot of it is covered under, having writing a markup that's actually accessible, like native tags, those sorts of things. But accessibility and assistive technologies is something you don't learn about in school. So in the workplace and at every position I've held, I've noticed that there's a lack of understanding. Even in from everywhere from content to design to engineering. So there's visual things like color contrast, and I can just look at something and tell you that doesn't meet AA standards, right? And the intent is there, right? We don't know about it, we won't do anything about it, right? It's not like we're maliciously trying to make things unreadable. But there are patterns out there that make things better for people with disabilities and just the other types of users. Everyone benefits from accessibility. So um, I realize that I have a place in my heart to like try to help people understand things and educate them, and documenting learnings and sharing my failures and successes with others has made it available for people to feel more comfortable approaching these issues and wanting to learn about it. Like, I think it starts from a place of courage and in admitting that, hey, we don't know everything. We might be the best developer, we might be the best designer, but we don't know until we're exposed to it. We don't know, right? And so I realize that most people are interested in learning these things. Most people approach it from a place of empathy, and they want to learn. They want to make things better. They want to know what they're doing is helping someone, regardless of if you're in a fintech organization or if you're working in a B2B or if you're working at a coaching company, which is where I'm at right now. And I'm lucky to be at a place that cares about accessibility, because a lot of organizations just kind of put that on the backlog and think of it as an edge case, when actually it could do fixing things and make them more accessible can make it better for everyone, right?
Yeah. So I'd love to unpack a little bit of some of the macro issues. You talked about the comfort level of being able to approach it, that folks go with it from a place of empathy. But what are some of the macro issues pressing on the accessibility space that you see?
That's a great question, Brian. I think one of the most glaring ones, from what I've noticed in my experience, and I've fallen victim to this too, is when you're Googling and you're just learning about accessibility and how to make things accessible, there's a lot of information out there that comes from, we don't know where, right? Like, we have to be very careful about our resources or the sources, and how credible they are, because um, for instance, a company that's providing accessibility overlays, which is a solution that we've known for a while now, is actually problematic for people. They might come up with an article, it's like, oh, you're one-stop shop for accessibility, and this is how you do it. You just add this button or something, and or how to get around or how to do things a quick way. I like to liken it to like building a ramp out of sand. Like, if I'm trying to build a wheelchair ramp, I want to build it with the right materials so that it supports people, not something that's faulty. And so it can be hard at first to discern whether or not this something is coming from a credible source, or like just any rando pando out there.
Yeah. I'm curious, some of the helpful resources you had mentioned, a mentor that was really instrumental in the early stages. Um, how have you gone about the ongoing education to address some of these issues?
Wonderful question. So I did make friends with the guys at WebAIM. I did some training with them, and reached out to them later on when company I was working for needed some auditing services. And I met a woman through user research who was very big in the accessibility world, and she opened my eyes to a lot of things that I thought I was an expert, and like, wow, just the story she has to tell, and like, she's very big on LinkedIn. And we keep in contact and stuff like that. I try to get as many people who I consider my like people I can learn from, and I think you can learn from people who have been doing it longer than you, and learn from people who are new too. It's like, it doesn't matter where they are in their journey. Everyone has something that you can learn from. And so just keeping in touch with people, and people like you, like what your company's doing is something that I have not seen before, and it's really exciting. I think you're doing things that are like, the next stage of this entire realm of things that we are doing. So
Yeah, I mean the journey, no pun intended, about really this centers around user experience, right? Like,
mhm.
how do you make it so that the playing field is level, right? We study so much around personalization and user journey mapping from a development and user experience perspective. And I kind of look at this as another persona of consumer, of you from a user, from an audience perspective, that brands have coming to their website or trying to use their web application, their software, that we should be treating this as a level playing field, that accessibility, um, it's really interesting to me, right? Like, I was just kind of thinking about the mobile advancement that the iPhone and Android and the operating system have made around the accessibility preference that can be enabled. And there, you don't need to be blind in order to choose an accessibility preference, right? Like, there's
Yeah,
things that make everyone's life just that little bit easier that are deemed accessibility. And so when you size up what is accessibility, it has like kind of a wide dynamic of who falls into that space.
100%. I
Um,
agree.
and then, so you mentioned, the solutioning, this building the sand out of, or building a ramp out of sand, right? So how have these challenges kind of snowballed, and where are we at from a place of being able to address them.
Well, I think in some ways, you'll hear this from, and you've probably heard this before, that accessibility is a moving target, especially in the tech world where things are being built all the time. If we don't build with accessibility out of the box, then we're going to be chasing changes forever, right? So one of the things that I think I've been successful at with my team is building, reusable components with accessibility out of the box, so it's hard to not be accessible. Adding in automation as well, like checks to, make sure no one's, turning in any code that, violates AA standards, that sort of thing. But like it's almost impossible to always get ahead of the game with that, right? Like, education's like the number one thing. Like we need to broaden awareness. And if we have that awareness, there's always that piece in your heart that's saying, is this accessible, what I'm building? You're always reminded of that. And I think it comes from, because humans build products, right? We build AI, we build everything. So if the intent is there, if the heart is there, then and you know it, at least you're gonna be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, then you're in a bad spot, right? So increasing awareness has been a big challenge. And I think, especially if you look at the WCAG documentation, there's a lot of jargon in there that no one, I found a lot of success in likening it to like real life situations. For example, like you were mentioning on phones, like text, being able to resize and reflow. Like when you're driving around in a state that's known to have people who are elderly living there, for example, Arizona, all the signs have a lot bigger font, right? And that's because it's by law, they have to, so people can read. These are things we see in our everyday lives, and they translate to, technology really well.
Yeah, I guess technology is our friend in many ways, but it's sort of lagging a little bit from leveling that playing field.
Yeah.
One thing I want to go back to just for 2 seconds is you had mentioned accessibility from the get-go, right? And I kind of had an aha moment the other week where I was talking with someone in the accessibility space, and we were kind of akinning it to, well, when you join the company for the first time, you get a user manual, you can learn about the culture. There is so much onboarding and education that goes into a new employee, or ongoing investment in education. And it's really interesting to me where if the education and the awareness were brought in from the get-go, literally from the day you join the company, whether you're a front end developer, you're the designer, you're someone in creative, right? Like all parts of the content supply or all parts of the organization need to embrace it. So that from the get-go concept really kind of resonated to me, because I'm like, yeah, I don't know that happens in a lot of places.
Yeah, and it should never come as a surprise. I think it's natural for people to embrace accessibility once they learn about it, right? I don't know anybody, and I wouldn't want to know anybody who doesn't care about accessibility. It's just a matter of broadening awareness, like you said. Yeah, and that is an awesome idea too. Like bringing people into an organization and having like the training manual there for them to even a mention of it is something, because we talk about diversity and inclusion and all that, and accessibility is a part of DEI, right? Like this is like. And there's so many different facets too. There's cognitive, there's all, and some of us are, interchangeable through a few of these. They're cross-referencing a lot of them. And, um, you know, I wonder how many companies are actually implementing that into their onboarding process.
Yeah. One of the pieces, we tend to look at a lot of data in our company, and the size of the company really dictates whether there's any person who's had experience in accessibility. Have they had experience in a prior role? Did they get a certificate in their current role? Or do they have specific accessibility focused roles from a development or a design? I mean, some of the larger organizations like a CVS and Bank of America, I mean, these conglomerate massive organizations have invested there, and that economic barrier to entry is there. But these smaller organizations where education is, I think it comes at a cost and an expense. I don't know. It's sort of a head scratcher for me. And then you are left with, well, I'm going to look at accessibility once the development's done, and I'm going to do the testing right before we push it live. And How expensive is that to the organization to try to go back and fix it?
A lot more than doing it from the start, right? I mean, retrofitting, and I've been a part of a few retrofitting projects across different organizations, and they take time. Time is money, and the good things that came out of those things are that the fact that people are now more aware of it, because there's some pain that had to be there for the awareness to come. We don't want to introduce this realm of opportunity as something painful, right? That's not a good way to be like, oh man, we have to make it accessible. No, we should make it should be accessible. It shouldn't even be a thought, it should just be. I remember we had at one of my old jobs, we were coming up with names for some sort of piece of a feature, and someone put the word accessible in the beginning of it. And I was like, well, shouldn't it just be like, do we have to say, do we have to label it that? And I always thought that was funny. But yeah, I want to live in a world, and I think we will live in a world where it's not an afterthought, right? Like it just is, and I think with the things coming in the future, like AI, I think there's a lot of promise there. As long as the intent is there, right? Like we have to fill this knowledge gap. Um, if that's filled, then, people make machines. Machines are going to make the same mistakes as people make, right? Like if Chat GPT is like Googling for answers, they're going to come up with the best ones if we had trouble finding them too, right? So cross-referencing, like, sources and stuff like that. The intent's there. We should bridge that gap, the knowledge gap, and everything will be. I think good things are going to get better, bad things are going to get worse. So we try to focus on the good and have the courage to fight ableism.
So the fight, right? And I'm
Yeah.
sure in over 10 years, going on 12 years of exposure in the accessibility space, you've come across some of your own personal challenges. You started the conversation today with a massive hurdle that you had to overcome. Can you dive into some of the personal challenges that you've had?
Oh yeah. So from a user perspective, I can get into those too. But as an accessibility professional, in my first few years, I fell victim to these traps of like, oh, this is how you do something. So I remember when I was building this product, and they're like, well, we have to make this checklist, accessible. And so I Googled how to do that, and I came across ARIA attributes, which um, wow, after testing it, using the screen reader and the keyboard, it was more confusing than it was before. So, everything went to the garbage, and I had to rewrite it as a native checkbox and checklist. And that was like, my first experience like failing and learning that, what you think, like, there's no fast way to this. There's no cutting corners. Like, I really have to understand and comb through like how to do this the right way. I didn't go to school for computer science. I went to a boot camp, and we didn't learn about accessibility there. So everything I learned, I pretty much learned on the job over the past decade or so. And a lot of failures were in there, and a lot of trying and trying again, and then reading, blog posts, some that sent me in one direction, some that sent me in the right direction, and just getting involved with people like you. My next step in this journey is trying to get my get certified in as a professional accessibility of core competencies, so the CPAC stuff. I'm excited about that. I haven't started studying yet, but it did take a little practice test and did pretty well. So that's our. I had no idea. So I'm still learning. I'll never call myself an accessibility expert. I think when you call yourself an expert, then there's no implication that you're continuously learning. And I always want there to be a prize, and I always want to be chasing that learning. Like there's something that I don't know yet, and how do we learn about these things through other people, people who have sailed before us and who have taken that step and have had the courage to do these types of things, and being outspoken about it too, like saying, I don't know this, please tell me, give me a chance to learn about it, working with colleagues like that.
Yeah, it's two things you kind of just unpack that I'd love to dive into for a second. One is the exact reference of going to a colleague or going to another subject matter expert. We're working with a particular client now that provides development and creative services, and they're looked at as the subject matter expert to the brand. And now that partner is looking to us to kind of back them up, and it's like that was the most like comforting. I think took a lot of humility to express like I'm viewed as an accessibility expert but I need additional partners, right? Like, I think that that's good. Like, that was like, that gave me the chills, you know? I was like, wow, this is, we back you, you back them, and together the audience and the consumer has a better experience. Like, that hits the nail on the head of what you just said.
Yeah, it definitely takes a village. I mean, you'll hear a lot about this too. Like we hear about this all the time. You don't ever want to be the one person, trying to prove that accessibility matters. Like it's a hard uphill battle. Um, and you don't have to go at it alone. A lot of people want to be, there's, all it takes is courage, right? Courage and empathy are very important values, right? We talk about them all the time. Let's put them into action. People want to help with stuff like this. And there is time in the day for it, right? Like you make time for things that matter. So, um, and it's worth it. It's worth every penny.
From a cost perspective, I think these two points come together, which is being the one person or being the one team that thinks about it. Most organizations that I talk to, it's in the development space that, when they're launching their app, that they're looking at accessibility for the first time. And like you mentioned, that comes with a lot of costs. And it's interesting where it's, if there's an ARIA label that's missing or it just doesn't make sense. The easiest thing that I've gone to other brands and I've kind of demonstrated is like, turn on Apple VoiceOver and navigate your site.
Yeah.
And it,
Close
and
your
it,
eyes and do
yeah,
it.
close your eyes. And it's like, wow, that what I thought was like SEO optimized content that's good for Google, and I'm checking a box for YCAG, is not actually a good experience. And so, putting the onus all into the development space where it's like, if there's a code issue, yes, you're the developer. Like, fix
Yeah.
the code. We're not going to ask the creative to go rewrite the code, but like the
Yeah.
content that goes into that. Well, who's writing the content and where is that coming from? Is that coming from the merchandising team? Is that coming from a
Right.
copywriter? Well, let's work with
Exactly.
these team members to make an impact on the quality that goes into what Apple VoiceOver reads, because when it's all put on you, and it's like, well, Seema, can you fix this? It's like, I can do the code, but you want me to do the other stuff too?
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a thread that spans across functions. I talk to people in legal, I talk to people who are designers, I talk to content people, localization people. Like there's so many it touches everything,
Yeah,
it
it's a
makes
multifaceted strategy, like is any other level of personalization. And that's,
yeah,
just to come back to that for 1 second, it's like we're personalizing an experience for an audience cohort that matters, right? Like
yeah,
that's what we're choosing to do in the accessibility space.
yes,
Any
especially
other?
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Especially in a world where like most of these products aren't accessible, like
And the products that you're using to build the products aren't. So it's like
yeah,
it's like a chicken and an egg thing.
yeah, yeah, it is. It is.
Any other personal challenges you want to touch on? I think we've really been able to focus there. So I'd love to, if there's nothing jumping out, and please stop me.
I
Some
think
of
the thing
the
is
yeah,
staying
yeah,
on
go ahead.
top of things. It has been like I just noticed that there was a CPAC. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get certified. Like the world's moving very fast, and trying to keep up with that is it's hard sometimes when you have like a real job and you have this and that and all these things going on. Um, at the same time, it's like just staying ahead. Like there's people are doing amazing things in this space. Like your team, everyone. Like there's so much going on, and staying ahead of that and like keeping up with that, and like is has been difficult, but we make time for it too.
One of the areas, and I think bottom up advocacy, but also top down. Typically, the CEO um, needs to, and the leadership needs to impress upon some of the goals. And one of the organizations I was talking to had mentioned that, especially in 2024, the accessibility space for the CMO and for the brand to focus on is really it's a safe investment pillar, right? Like, you have this audience already at your fingertips. It's just a matter of capitalizing on it from a brand perspective to give that experience that gets them to enjoy your product or your service.
Yeah.
Um, so having that goal setting, mission driven approach from the executive and leadership level and from the ground up saying, hey, I want to be able to pursue this, right? Like you had mentioned, like, well, I have a job. How do I do this? It's like, well,
Yeah.
we kind of mentioned if you're doing it from the get go, then it's not like an extra thing, right? It's just
Yeah.
like it starts and it carries through.
Yeah, I should probably clarify that keeping staying on top of, the changes and all the new tools available to us is something that while I'm working, but yeah, it's hard to keep up with. But yeah, it's embedded in my every day. I'm thinking about accessibility. I want everyone to think about it all the time too. If you're building something, if you're designing something, if you're talking to if you're a user researcher, if you're filling out, a contract for a client, some people are motivated by these empathy exercises, like you mentioned, closing your eyes and just trying to navigate your website. Other people are motivated by money and dollar signs. Like, as we look at like different types of, like every federal contract is like demands AA accessibility. Like you're not going to get away with, beating Section 508. Like there's no way, So, and they can come in at any time and audit your tools and stuff. So if that's what this risk factor is, what motivates your company, then yeah, like look at these things. Like you can, there's an expansion, but ideally we shouldn't have to talk about that, right? We talk about the user and their experience and how accessibility makes it better for them. And we're creating a better world that way.
I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. If you deal with the experience component of accessibility, you address the compliance and the legal risk altogether, because you have brands who come to compliance, to AA compliance, and you still see they're getting sued because the experience is so bad. Like,
Exactly.
um,
It's not a
so
checkbox.
yeah, right. It's not. And one of the biggest um, benefactors on our side is that technology is moving incredibly fast. I don't even think a year ago AI was in our vocabulary, and now it's, I have my dad sending me, check out ChatGPT, and thankfully I've seen it before, so I was able to tell him. But what are the biggest disruptors coming to accessibility from your point of view?
I mean, you mentioned it. We can't talk about it without talking about AI. So good things get better, bad things get worse, right? So if we have the intent there and the people are building the tools the right way with like accessibility in mind from the start, we're going to have a great experience for people. Like a co-pilot will be our accessibility assistant. If not, a lot of people are going to get left behind. And that's where our jobs become even more important, because you're going to need that human touch. We see that, automation, like automated, like it gets you up to like 50%, 57% or something. You need that manual audit too. No tool can pretend to be a person with all sorts of disabilities, right? So we're not going to catch everything that way. I think what you guys are doing is really good, like the training of the machines to like learn like specific to clients, which is really cool. And that's just like a whole area I haven't even discovered yet, and I think but I do think AI is promising as long as we do it the right way. Also, we need to get rid of these overlays, like the companies that are adding these overlays. Like they're all, for some reason, on a lot of car websites, I've noticed, and like in clothing store, like you see the little accessibility button, and I'm like, why? It's like, I don't know, maybe that stems from something in real life where we have like the handicap bathroom or whatever, and it's just kind of like othering, and it's not integrated. Like every bathroom should be accessible, right? Everything should be accessible, it just makes, you get more, it just makes it better for everyone, right? But people think that there's, a quick way to get, make something accessible by having this check. Like, I think that overlays need to be done away with. And that's a big disruptor. But I think we have a lot of promising opportunities in AI. And I think we'll see a lot of that. I'm optimistic about it.
Anything you're not optimistic, you're scared of, or intimidated about?
Um, Yeah, I thought about that before. I was like, will AI ever steal the job of someone who's like a web accessibility programs manager or something? And I think they're, just like there's so many different there. We might just be 1 year behind that. We're not there yet, but I mean, and I love to. I'm all about embracing like the evolution of humankind into cyborgs. That's the talk for another type of podcast, but I do, I do think that I think that I believe in like I think that people are at our core, we're good and we want to help others, and like we are, we get a sense of accomplishment by doing that. I know I do, And there's enough people like that out there that it's not going to fly. Like you already see articles out about, if XYZ AI tool is leaving people with disabilities behind and so forth. A colleague just sent me a link the other day. I haven't gotten to it yet, but about Copilot and accessibility. And, there's some conflicting stuff there, but the awareness is out there. Like word is on the street, so there's no escaping that. So I'm not afraid.
Cool. Well, Seema, we've come to the end of our episode, and so much to take away. I feel empowered every time I have the opportunity to speak with you. The way that you speak with conviction and the passion that's behind this from your standpoint is just incredible. So I want to just open it up. If there's anything that we didn't talk about today that you have a glaring desire to share, please.
Well, I'm excited to see what you and your team do in the next upcoming quarters, and just want to thank you for having me. This is really my first time on a podcast, so excited about that, and I hope you keep in touch. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Seema, and thank you again for joining.
Thanks. Bye.